Hey, what's going on, everybody? Steve here, Rake and Profit over at rakeandprofit.com, coming back to you with another video. And today, you are in for an amazing treat. We are joined by my friend David Wosick. And David is a Amazon wholesale seller. He's actually doing around $500,000 to $550,000 per month. You heard that correctly, not per year, per month, with his wholesale business. And just last year, he did over $6.1 million in sales. David actually went through the wholesale formula, and he's pretty close friends with them. So he's going to be coming on, sharing his ups and downs, wins and losses, his journey, his story regarding wholesale and kind of how he got started and how he got to where he is today. So I want to introduce David. What's going on? How are you? Thanks for coming.
Hey, how are you? I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing fantastic, man. You know, behind the scenes, I heard you were saying it's negative 30 degrees right now where you are?
Yeah, we are in the polar Arctic right now in Chicago. So it's freezing to say the least.
Well, man, hopefully you get warmed up during this conversation, because we've got some hot and spicy topics that we're going to be diving into today. But let's get right into it, man. Let's talk about your story. How exactly did you get started? Because now you're putting up huge numbers, man. Your business has grown tremendously over the years, over 500,000 a month now wholesale. How the heck did you get started for the people who are watching?
Sure. So I always had kind of an affliction with buying and selling. I actually went back to school, got a master's degree in e-commerce. So I love just online transactions, everything about them, and these larger channels. At the time was Amazon was selling books. eBay was kind of the front runner, if you will, on some of these opportunities to have a business. And so I came across a kind of a random, I would say almost like a sales sheet on just how to buy and sell. It was just buying stuff and drop shipping out of different locations onto eBay, actually. I'm sure your audience is aware of how some of these things work, but
oh yeah,
some online arbitrage, basically, I guess is how you best say it. But so I started there and didn't really grasp the concept of wholesaling. So I would just, I buy it, and I've always thought of myself as kind of a savvy shopper. Whenever I wanted to buy something, I would never go to a store. I always trying to find a deal, a closeout on that same item. Just be very diligent with how I make my purchases. So I really loved the fact of hey, if I buy this cheaper, I can go and sell it for a profit somewhere else, where people who just are looking to, they're just regular consumers, are just going to go ahead and make a purchase, unaware that there are deals out there, and which is the majority of people, right? So started that, and that was just very small, all virtual. Didn't have any product, just again online arbitrage in its most basic form. And then I began to really get interested in it, and I'm like, I'm seeing some certain products I'm continually buying more and more of, but I'm like, I'm still not buying it at the lowest price. Like this is from some other person who's selling it. So that had me thinking well, I got to go back and see if I can find it cheaper than what I'm buying it for. And kind of stumbled on to the concept of wholesaling in that regard. And so with that, I began to, contact brands and just, say, hey, look, I'm buying this product. If it's available for sale, can you give me a price list? So it was a very, very simple, very, very cut and dry. And lo and behold, I was able to get an account or two for that. And as we progressed, I was made aware of the wholesale formula just because I was starting to learn more in the community, and stumbled across these guys, and they, the course itself was not available. So I went to the website and it's like, hey, sign up and we'll let you know when the course is available. So I was like, okay, kind of not a big deal. And I signed up, and nothing, waited, but still stayed the course with what I was doing. And then I, oddly enough, did not. So there was an event being offered by the folks at the wholesale formula. It was more of a VIP. And all the while I was doing what I was doing and slowly growing, but seeing videos, seeing some of the things that they had out there, some of the content, I'm like, these guys are just some dudes from Kentucky. Like, what is going on, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm going to give this a shot. And I didn't bat an eye. I signed up for the event. At that time, it was, hey, come to our warehouse, check things out. It's going to be chock full of information. I'm like, okay, I'm digging this. And also, you get, as part of signing up, you also get the course. So without even going and looking at the course, I was more or less intrigued. I'm like, these guys seem awesome. I like what they offer. I'm all in on this just because I'm doing this myself with literally no knowledge, just kind of learning a little bit as I go. And at that point, I remember my wife and I were literally buying maybe $200 to $400 worth of product, and it would make me anxious because it was like, wow, this is significant, and we're doing packing it, getting ready to go into Amazon, so we're stickering it, doing all this stuff on our kitchen table, and that was kind of the point where we always reflect upon where we are then to now, right? So went to the this event, and I was hooked. The particular event had two different ways or two different strategies, which is private label or wholesaling. And I remember I was so interested in wholesaling that I just opted out the private label portion. I'm like, hey guys, is it cool if I just hang in this warehouse with you guys and just try to take in as much as I can? And of course they're like, yeah, man, whatever you want to do. If you want to stick around. And this was a very, this is like, 10, 20 people at this event. So split, and then between 10 and 10 for each, it was like over a course of like 3 or 4 days. I'm like, no, I'm just going to hang out here. Thanks. Had no idea, didn't learn about anything on the private label side. So then at that point, I learned so much just by going, obviously, but then it was, okay, well, I really need to ramp things up, and actually go through the course, which again, it's somewhat backwards, right? Like, but again, the content and just the trust I put in just how down to earth Eric and Dan were, I was just like, these guys, yeah, they're doing it, and I want to do the same. So I remember that, and it's something that I always kind of laugh about, because as you go through the wholesale formula in itself, the course, there's a part where you make calls to vendors and in essence solicit to open up accounts, which is just part of the business, right? And I remember literally going back to my hotel room during breaks to, hey, we're going to meet in 2 hours, let's have lunch. I literally remember going back and applying just what little I learned at that time and making calls in my hotel room, and trying to get accounts and all that stuff. So I was on fire, ready to go. But nonetheless, what ended up happening is went through it and just gained more knowledge, and came home and just continued to do just that. Try to get accounts, what have you, and continue to expand the business to, going from a kitchen table to a basement to my nephew who just needed some side hustles, some extra money. I'm like, hey, I'll pay you. That was a very nervous kind of like, wow, this is intense. All the while, I had a regular job. I was, at a executive level in a small company, so I was doing well for myself. So I really wasn't on any sort of a time crunch, but at the same time, I knew I was very entrepreneurial. Kind of had that streak. I'm like, I've always wanted to go out on my own. So for me, it was just, I got to put my head down and do whatever I can till I get let's call it salary parity between what I was doing on the wholesale side with my job. And then it was 3 years ago that I left my regular job at the pinnacle of my career, crazy, and jumped into this full time. And that was over in the basement to, my first employee to, hey, the basement's getting full. I need more employees. So I've literally having family come in and out of my house until we couldn't do the basement. And I'm like, okay, well, I got to get a warehouse. And So each milestone is full of anxiety and like, I can't believe I'm doing this. Can I afford this? That kind of that life cycle. And then went from there to the warehouse, and then more employees to a bigger warehouse. And so on and on and on, to in essence where we are now, which, we're fully staffed, and we actually, warehouse the whole 9 yards. So it's been a wild and fun journey, but yeah, I would not change it for anything, the good or the bad, which, as we all know, as an entrepreneur, it just happens. You have your good days and your bad days, but that's to be expected. So
what an amazing story, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely spectacular. Now, I would like to ask you, because you were actually taking action and trying things on your own at first. Were you getting results on your own? And what I'm curious to ask is, like, once you started like linking up with the Wholesale Formula guys and you went through their course and you went to that event, did your results start to increase, or did you learn something that kind of changed, or how did that go about?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, and that was kind of part of it is, I'm learning stuff on my own. I'm on YouTube. I'm just trying to figure this whole thing out. Like, what is this whole wholesale concept? I didn't understand at the time that I was doing online arbitrage. Like, I didn't know that was a term, right? I was just kind of like, I'm just going to buy stuff and move it here. I understood what drop ship means. Like, so these terms started to become, more in my vernacular. And then, once I went to the event, again, not even going through the course, and of course it was much more condensed. It's not going to be as lengthy as a course and as thorough, just because you're talking, you're conversing. It's 3-4 days long, not a huge course. So nonetheless, the community, once you kind of get into the wholesale formula in itself, the community is in itself is priceless. So learning a little bit on my own, absolutely, but yeah, there is an immediate ascent into, once you're in the community, once you understand the course, once you understand how much you've been missing and how much you need to learn, in essence, and that's not, of course, a bad thing, is when, for me, it was really kind of a springboard into the next level of, okay, I am a I am a wholesaler, right? This is kind of what I'm defined by, as just this guy who before was just trying to do some side hustle, right? And now it's like, I'm a wholesaler. This is what I do. I'm a buyer, however you want to frame it up. And from there is when it kind of skyrocketed. So yeah, once I immersed myself into kind of this wholesale formula ecosystem, if you will, with both the community of folks I have joined, that door opened, and that for me was where, the learning, the knowledge, and just being able to capitalize on what I was doing, I guess, unknowingly,
Sure.
start to kind of come together for me. So yeah, absolutely. It was night and day.
Awesome. Cool. So a lot of people that are watching right now are, selling on eBay. They're doing the online arbitrage, they're drop shipping, but they're looking for a more scalable business model, something that allows them to be able to travel, earn more money, really build a real business instead of kind of like a job. That's one of the downsides kind of like selling on eBay and books and all that, is you kind of just create yourself a job in a sense. What advice would you give people who are looking to get started with wholesale, like during that first year? Like, are there maybe 1 to 3 things that you see like stop most people, like some of the big hurdles, some of the big challenges that really stop people, and they don't get any results with wholesale?
Right. So what I feel is, like, with the arbitrage types of businesses, that they're very, I wouldn't say fly by night, because there are quite a few very successful online arbitrage and or retail arbitrage. But I think in one aspect, it's let's say from a retail standpoint, retail arbitrage it's hours for dollars, right? Like, you literally have to go to a store. You have
I like
to
that
find
one.
stuff, right? Yeah. So you have to do that. Online arbitrage, you can create, let's call it systems in place, but it's very touch and go. So think of, like, hey, I'm finding some closeout, and I think closeout's the perfect word. It's like, you find closeouts, right? So you find stuff that is temporary. And for me, I wanted something to be able to stand on, right? So like, I don't want to be able to find one day that I'm blowing it out with, I'm selling these widgets, but I only have 100 of them, and then that well is dry. Now I have to go and hunt and find the next product that's going to help me. So I'm going to have what I feel is almost like so think of it as like, for me, I thought of it as like a sales, right? Like if you don't sell, you're not making money. If you're working in sales, where I still want more of an idea or ideology of, it can always ascend, no doubt, but at least I want some stability in what I'm doing, right? Like I want a salary, something I can count on, because we all have a responsibility. So for me, it was like, okay, well, if I do this arbitrage, or if I continue this drop shipping on eBay, I'm not getting the best price, okay? And at the same time, it's so dynamic that one day I can hit a pot of gold, and the next day I'm like, I'm out of this closeout's over, I can't find anything, and I can just reflect like, man, that was an awesome moneymaker, but it's over and done, not to find the next thing. And that takes a toll. It took a toll on me, which is where I'm like, well, I need more of an established model, something where if I buy 100 of a product, I can just call up that particular vendor right back up and say, hey, I need another 100. And like, okay, no problem. The manufacturer would have you. So I think it's just the strength is more in the sourcing of that particular product or what have you, as opposed to just kind of hunting for deals per se. So that's, for me, was where I'm like, this arbitrage is just, to me, wasn't sustainable in that regard. And again, there are folks out there that are absolutely crushing it. And I'm like, man, do I need an arbitrage business? So I'm like, nope, stay in your lane. You have so much stability in what you're doing, because it's not, buying it from, Joe's Sporting Goods or what have you. It's established relationships with a particular vendor, as an example, who know you by name, and, they're sending you gift cards or what have you during the holidays. It's a relationship that you can go, and that well is alive and well. So, so having said that, that is, I think, one of the bigger takeaways as far as a more stable, which everyone who does side hustle, let's call it, they may or may not like what they're doing, their regular job. That may be the reason why they're doing it, because they want to get out, or they just need some extra money because they have a hobby, they enjoy doing that, which is kind of how it started with me. Wasn't an initial intent. But it was more or less the ability to have something that I can actually work towards, an end goal, if you will, in the wholesaling side of things. So I think, for one, just from a wholesaling specifically with what I'm doing, it's just the stability, as well as just a more scalable, right? You can only search for so much online arbitrage, let's call it, going back to it, because that's what I'm familiar with in the arbitrage world. You can only go to, or in retail arbitrage, you only go to so many Walmarts. But when you talk about a wholesale, it's, you're talking millions upon millions upon millions of manufacturers. So that, for me, was a big takeaway, in that you can scale it. It's scalable. Now you actually have a business, right? And you don't just have we're Walmart buyers and that's what we do and that's our business, which, again, I'm not discounting, because I know some are pretty significant, but I wanted scale. I wanted something to say, hey, here is my business. This is what we do. So yeah, those are probably from a scalability standpoint and a stability, the two S's, let's call it, right? Those, for me, are probably what really intrigued me or got me kind of interested in, okay, what is this wholesaling about, and where can I learn this? How can I pick this up, and who can I trust?
I wanted to dive a little more into, and I appreciate that response. What really holds people back the most, you would say, though? What do you think holds them back from getting the wholesale business off the ground? Because with retail arbitrage and online arbitrage, it's not a huge barrier to entry, right? I would say wholesale's going to be a much larger, there's more upfront work that you're going to have to do to actually start making that moolah versus just going to a thrift store or a garage sale. So what do you think holds people back the most from landing that first account, making that first $1,000 a month?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So when I went, when I was doing arbitrage and I went to wholesale, to me, it was just a natural progression in that, like I'm making, X dollars, but I'm like, I want to make Y. And so for me, initially it was the motivation of like, I want to find the closest, the source or what have you. So for me, it was motivational, right? Like it was the competitive nature in me where I'm like, I don't want to just buy it from Walmart. And, by then it's gone through 4 or 5 different people. It's gone through maybe just, it's gone through Walmart. It's gone through a distributor, perhaps from a distributor to a manufacturer. So it's gone through 3 hands before it's even hit my hand. So by the 4th or 5th hand, when it actually gets into the consumer's hands, I mean, consumers are becoming much more savvy, right? There's stuff out there all day long now where they're like, hey, we need the best deal. We need, the cheapest price. And there's all these different extensions and all this stuff to find a better deal wherever it's at. So I feel like the consumer is becoming more and more intelligent in that regard. How that ties back to the barrier to entry or just the challenges. Honestly, I don't disagree with you, but it's not as tough as you would think getting into wholesale. I mean, it's you have to have a few things in place, all things considered. But again, tools that you use for your online arbitrage business, it's the same conceptually, the same thing. You need a few, tools, stuff you can do from home. This isn't anywhere you need to go. So you need some software, basic software, and a phone. So we all have both of those, right? So, or the ability to have both of those. So that is probably from a from the standpoint of a barrier to entry. To me, it's minimal when I actually think about it and reflect. The biggest challenge to me in going forward is, and I hate to sound cliche with this, but it's just kind of that want, right? That want in finding whatever that better prices. Honestly, like to me, it's all about the source. Like it's basic economics, or the economies of trying to find where that actual product and where it's being sold, and how can I get that through the least amount of hands, that exchange of passing through. So for me, that was that motivation to want to get that lowest sourced product value, what have you. But I think aside from that, I'm very introverted. And I think I mentioned to you, Steve, like I'm an engineer. I've never, I've always in corporate America, I've always sat at my desk, sat in my office, what have you. And any conversation was with other techie software engineers, and it was interdepartmental. And then until the level I was at, where I would have to do like, technology pitches of what our company offers to other vendors or what have you, I wasn't crazy about it. I was extremely, I'm very, like I said, very reclusive and kind of just introverted, like I said. So what changed for me there is, well, I have to do this in my business. And it's that, obviously that want, like I want to do this. And I also wanted to learn. I didn't care if I failed, because majority of folks who, are getting involved, they probably have a job or they're doing something else, and they have, want to create some extra money, and then that extra money turns into something more, ideally, right? Blossoms to something else. So for me, it was like, I have nothing to lose. I'm gonna pick up the phone. I literally hate talking to people, but at the end of the day, it was like, well, if I want to pursue this because I think there's something here, right? I think there's opportunity here. It's just that, getting over the initial hump of like making a call. It's getting over that hump of I just want to move forward on what I'm doing. And a lot of what kind of the linchpin for me was that I was doing, like I said, arbitrage, which I didn't even know what the heck that was at the time. Only thing I knew was dropship. I'm drop shipping. And at that time I was drop shipping out of Amazon onto eBay. But aside from that, I didn't know anything else. So I'm like, if I was able to do this just for poking around because I just innately was looking for better deals on something, and it turned out to be something that people are buying, I'm like, dude, I bought this for $30 less. Why didn't you? But then you begin to understand that that's just more the norm than not, right? So I was like, I was able to do all that with literally no training, no education, no community. And going from that into wholesale, I'm kind of like, well, for me, it was, well, if I can do this arbitrage, which is, to your point, of kind of a low barrier to entry, to what I would still consider a very low barrier to entry, in the sense of you don't need to have anything. Like, there's things I'm good at and there's things I'm bad at, but we all have our strengths, we all have our weaknesses. That's totally normal. To get into wholesale, which is a more stable model and a much more scalable model, I was like, well, why not? Why not give this a shot? Why not see how far I can actually take this? Because I was doing pretty well just without any sort of knowledge or anything, very little time, just literally figuring stuff out myself and tinkering. So for me, that was kind of I just want to try it out. I gotta give this a shot. So that's where it came to, making that call, being on fire, making calls. And I'm like, okay, I want to see how far I can take this. I've got nothing to lose. I literally have nothing to lose.
Do you remember your first deal that you made, like through a phone call?
Yeah, I did. Funny thing is, I remember my first online arbitrage deal and my first call. First online arbitrage deal, is to kind of show, like, it's just part of the game. Like, I was actually, I was drop shipping. I think they're like, I want to say like fish tanks, which literally the first, the person bought it out of eBay. I remember it because on my phone, for whatever reason, had the cha-ching on it. I remember I was in the car with my wife, and I heard a cha-ching. I'm like, what the heck is that? And I had no idea. And I literally like glanced at my phone, and I'm like, honey, I just sold something to eBay. And at that point on, I'm like, okay, I'm going all in on this. This is so cool. I just sold it. I have no idea how people bought it, but they bought it, and it came like cracked glass everywhere, damaged the guy. So I literally remember having to actually find one. I was trying to be the best at customer service, do all that stuff, so it was an absolute disaster. I literally lost money on that very first, because I had to basically buy a whole nother one for him to make right. On the wholesale side, I remember I made my first what do you call it? My first, it's called price list or what have you. My first deal. It was just basically, hey, I'd like to sell your products. And I remember it was very much, okay, well, here's, it was very, very cut and dry. It was just, okay, I'd like to see your products. Who are you? A little bit of information about what you do, what have you. Okay, sounds good. I'm going to send you over an application. And I received the application and basically filled it out, came back, and then they sent me over a price list. And literally to this day, whenever I get price lists, it doesn't matter where it's coming from. It's just always exciting, because it's always intriguing to see kind of where things are at in the marketplace, where they're at. And I got a price list and just, ran through some of the process of, okay, what's good, what's not, using the tools and obviously the course and what it teaches you once you do get a price list and how to properly analyze. I remember making my first purchase, and it was a complete, it was a success in the sense that I made the order, but I just remember going through the whole process was very, wasn't intimidating. I wouldn't say that. It was just more or less, okay, well, having to ask questions that I didn't understand. I'm either asking the vendor or just asking the community, the TWF community, of like, hey, they're asking for this. What does this mean? And it's just like acronyms and, again, more vernacular, and like, hey, they want this form. What is this form? So learning all that through this whole exchange of getting what we call a price list. But that was my first. I remember it clearly. it was pretty cool. And at that point I was like, this is awesome. Like I now have the source. I don't have, this is the manufacturer. This is a source. This is what they're selling at. And there's a lot more that goes into that. It could be you could probably get the first price list, but it could actually, the third one down could be the one that you actually want, right? They've got different price lists for different folks. So again, that's all part of the learning and going through that. But I remember it was a win. And yeah, I literally remember exactly. And I wasn't at the hotel because I didn't know what I was doing at the hotel. Like literally I was just bombing on all my calls. I was so nervous. Totally normal stuff. Like I said, just literally not knowing how to talk. Like this is something I've never done before.
It was new.
But I didn't care. I knew I was going to learn it, become better. But I do remember I was at home, and it went down, and it was super exciting. And I had it shipped to my home and the warehouse and all that stuff, and I was off and running. So
cool, awesome. I'd like to ask you if you would mind diving a little deeper into like your strategy for finding products now. Are you pretty much doing your research on Amazon and kind of reverse engineering it? And because we've been talking to quite a few different students of the wholesale formula and wholesale sellers, and it seems like a lot of people, what they're essentially doing is they're pretty much finding hot selling products on Amazon, and then they're contacting these companies, smaller to mid-sized companies, and trying to help them and add value to them, and really come from a place of improving their listing, improving their overall selling to make more sales for them. Do you have a similar strategy, or do you do things a little different?
Yes, we do have a similar strategy. Absolutely. I want to say we're a little more seasoned. That's not what I'm trying to say, but there's definitely different things that we're doing. But again, it's not rocket science. I assure you that it's not like we're doing anything special. But there's just things you figure out in your business, like what you're good at, what you're not good at. That said, yes. So basically, fundamentally, no matter who you are, or what you do, you're looking for products that are doing well on Amazon, and you have tools that can help you determine exactly what. And there's a plethora of them. You find out what's working, what's selling, and then there is kind of with that bundled a bunch of different, I would say, analysis that you do to determine that it is worth pursuing, even if it is a good seller. And then from there, you go and hunt down whatever that product is, which is typical, it's fairly easy to do. You got Google, right? And you go and perform a search on, manufacturer A or manufacturer B, whatever it may be, and engage in a conversation, a call, right? And in essence, kind of what I mentioned before, like you're basically saying, hey, I'd like to open up an account, and here's what we do. And then kind of the next tier up is, okay, we don't want to just buy and sell. We want to be able to provide you some value, because for us, this is our business, and we want to give you, like, we feel, and this is something I tell myself and my team all the time, it's a privilege to work with vendors. Like, you look at it as a privilege to say, hey, look, and if you come across as such, that it's a privilege and you're very thankful, regardless of how good or bad the product is, let's call it, that privilege almost always translates into better conversation, right? And just being a little bit more, I guess, almost more gracious. And with that allows you to have better conversation with a particular brand to say, hey, we can also do some of these things with your brand, because we don't want to just be someone that buys and sells your product. We want to be able to, let's call it almost like give back, right? And so we want to offer a little more value than just being someone that is on this kind of cycle of buy, sell, reorder. And that's all you really hear from us. No, we want to actually establish a relationship. And at the same time, we want to be able to provide some value, because we have learned by selling on Amazon, we know that kind of all the different nuances and all the different things that you need to understand as you work on that channel. Just like with any other channel, like you need to know what's good photography on an eBay listing and what you put and what you don't put, right? There's all these different rules and procedures and protocols and tips, always offering free shipping, right? and then bump up the price. Like just basic stuff like that translates to Amazon. And it's not so much more sophisticated. It's a bigger channel. So with bigger channel becomes more things you need to do. Manufacturers, vendors, they don't want to bother with that stuff. They want to manufacture. They want to get their product out. So you're going to come in and say, hey, I want to be able to not only buy and sell, but also I want to be able to give back. I want to be able to help your brand, because there is 100% parity there, because they're like, typically, okay, that's great, sounds good, but at the same time, if it's better, you're going to be selling more, you're going to be buying more. So there's the kind of the win-win connection, and having that marriage with a particular vendor or manufacturer, knowing that what you're saying is all common sense, but there's an element to needing to hear that, right? So that is kind of the model, if you will, in the sense of not just being able to buy and sell, but also being able to buy and sell and one up the next kind of that next rung on the ladder of, we can also give you some value by doing X, Y, and Z with the listing to make it better, because I know how to, and then now that privilege that you're giving to them, they now feel on the other side and feel like, well, it's a privilege to have this person selling our product. They actually care and they want to do this, and it's going to help us. So why will we say no?
Interesting. It's so cool, David, how there's just so many products on Amazon. There's millions and millions and millions of products on there, and there's new brands and new product lines that are launching. And, I want to give you guys a homework assignment. Just go on to Amazon for a half hour and just start looking at different products. And you're going to see how many listings are just horrible that are actually selling really well, with one picture, one line of description, only a couple keywords in the title. So it's not really rocket science to be able to improve some of these listings, especially if you're spending time on Amazon and understand how it works.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's exhausting. It is. There's so much junk out there. And I don't say junk in the sense of quality, but junk in the quality of the actual listings, that there literally isn't enough time in the day. Like if I had the capital to hire like 40 full-time employees, really? 50, like if I had the time to be like, hey, make all these changes to all these listings based on, A, B, C, and D, on what we see as an issue. I mean, it's literally endless. There literally isn't enough. How do I say this? There literally isn't enough money in the world to capture just how nauseating that it is on the opportunity that Amazon is, in the sense of just needing help. People need help, and no one wants to deal with it. No one wants to deal with this stuff. Honestly, they want their hands off. It's that simple. And the biggest takeaway is that you want to be the person that they want to give it to. And that's really what it comes down to. And it's not, again, I am not any sort of a salesperson. I am very introverted. I call it like I see it. And just by being passionate and saying, hey, we want to help your brand. And, oh, by the way, while we're helping your brand, we want to kind of have the distribution of your product, be able to buy and sell and reorder. And that's what kind of keeps the gravy train running. But in the meantime, we want to help you guys. The emails back and forth, the kind of the relationship building there, it is huge. Like from a traveling standpoint, I know you mentioned it, like we travel to cool places, just not only for vacations, but just to go visit vendors, and it's all paid for. A lot of times they pay for it. They want us to come out, or we pay for it, but of course it's all expense. So I've never traveled as much as I have with my team and or my family since this business started, and it's free vacations, man. It's awesome. And there's so much more that goes along with that too, but it's pretty awesome. Cool. Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'd recommend people, start reaching out, start making some phone calls, regardless if you go through a course or not. Just start getting your feet wet, making some phone calls, talking to some vendors, doing some research. Obviously, inside the wholesale formula, you're going to get much more information about what you should be saying, how to improve listings,
right.
how to really go through the whole process, get access to the community. but it's just amazing. To kind of end things, because I know we only have a couple minutes left,
Yeah.
David, and I appreciate you coming on. What do you see as the future of wholesale? Do you see wholesale on Amazon strong over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years? Is this something that you're going to continue to build, or are you looking to kind of move outside of it?
No, I am all in, absolutely all in as far as kind of the whole crystal ball. You know, like any other channel, like any other business, you have to evolve, right? So how I see it is staying the course as far as what we're doing. And I think it's just more of that kind of those sharpening up those value propositions, or what you say you're going to do, and being able to do those things. Now, when I say do those things, doesn't mean that I'm actually doing them. I'm not doing them. I don't, either someone from my team is doing them, or we have it outsourced, because again, once you immerse yourself in a community, you have hundreds and hundreds of people who have done it, been there, good experiences, bad experiences, stay away. This is awesome. Jump on this. You know, folks that are doing better, just starting off, like you have all walks of life. And this isn't just the wholesale community, or this is the wholesale community, but if you just type in wholesale, there's probably a bazillion different groups on Facebook that can help you with this stuff. So just being able to immerse yourself in that and to learn. But at the end of the day, what we do is such a big part of Amazon's success that it's not like they're going to all of a sudden decide that, you know, no one's gonna be able to buy in wholesale. Like it's commerce. It's not even e-commerce. It's commerce at this point. So that won't change. It's only going to grow and grow as the channel becomes more and more part of or ingrained in people's lives. So you're going to see more products. I don't know what the stat is. It's just some like exhausting amount of products that are added every day. So it's just, yeah, it literally, it's ridiculous. But when it's all said and done, there's no reason to stop, and there's no reason to stop in the next 2 to 3 to 5 years, because again, it's how people, it's only become more and more, like I said, more and more ingrained in people's lives in buying and selling. It's just kind of the way it is. And more people we talk to that maybe don't exist on Amazon, they're like, we need to get on Amazon. And then that's where we have to make the decision of like, well, do we want to help them get on Amazon? Because that's a different animal, right? Mm-hmm. But the realization there, the coming to terms of like, hey, we need this on Amazon. Everyone buys on Amazon. Amazon's all over the news, the media, Amazon. So it only makes sense for everyone you talk to say, hey, we need to provide it. We need an Amazon strategy. So even people that don't exist on Amazon want to and will exist on Amazon, just because you've got to evolve or you die.
That's it, man. That's it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. David, you dropped a lot of awesome knowledge. I had so many more podcasts, but it's like, it was just so, I just wanted to keep you talking, man, because you were just really diving deep into a lot of these different things, and just appreciate you. And just crazy, man. The privilege to be able to talk to somebody who's doing over $500,000 a month now on wholesale, and hearing your little story of the first item you drop shipped and it cracked, and basic till now, man. I'm sure your wife and your family is super proud, and it's just crazy. Like, this business model, if you give it your all and you go for it, and you know, you practice and you don't give up, I could see how it's transformed your life. So I would recommend people to definitely look into it, especially if you're, you know, running out of time, you can't find enough products, you're constantly just hustling, and you're stuck at the $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a month mark. I mean, wholesale is definitely a great opportunity, and I would recommend that you check it out. If you guys are interested in a mentorship program, Dan and Eric of the Wholesale Formula have opened up their doors from February 21st to the 27th. And that's not just like a marketing pitch. Like, they literally open their doors. They used to open it twice per year. I didn't know if you know, David, but this year they're only opening it one time per year for 1 week.
I know that. Yeah.
And that's it. So what they do is they pretty much open up the doors for a certain period of time. And then when the students come in, they close it, and then they help the students pretty much go through the course, get results, interact. So if you guys are interested in it, check it out. There is a link in the description. Plus, I'm throwing in a little bonus offer, a little $2,000 bonus as an incentive to help you guys on your journey. So be sure to check that out. But David, appreciate you so much. You are amazing.
Anytime.
Great story. And look forward to hearing more from you and your success.
Absolutely. No problem. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, guys. Thanks so much. And we'll talk to you soon. Take care.
We'll see you. Bye.
All right. That was awesome, man.